If you want financial freedom, time freedom, and want to leave a legacy for generations to come, you probably have heard real estate investing is the place to do that. How do you get started? What do you have to do? When's the right time? If you are looking for those answers, you've come to the right place. My name is Kyle Stanley, and this is Fearless Flipping. My mission is to help you learn this business and conquer real estate investing. Hey, welcome into Fearless Flipping. We have a very special guest this week and a very special way that I met this guest, Sean Christopher. I've got my Craigslist notifications set to automatic, so whenever a potential deal comes through on Craigslist, I get a little notification. Well, I got one a couple weeks ago on Craigslist about a deal that looked really good and almost too good to be true. Turns out it was, because it was all the way in Baltimore, Maryland. But in doing so and finding this one, I found out that Sean has tons of properties like this, is helping tons of people to get into great locations, and he was the one that was on that Craigslist ad. Not to mention, he is managing hundreds of real estate investment properties for other landlords, but he's also doing it himself. This guy has got an amazing story, inspirational story, and has been through a ton to get to where he's at today. And so I'm really excited for you to learn more about Sean Christopher with Blue Water Investment Properties. Hey, welcome in, Fearless Flipping community. We have got Sean Christopher on the show here. What's up, Sean? Coming in from Jacksonville, Florida. Thanks for being on.
Oh man, so excited to be on here, man. I heard about your show, and I'm sure you'll tell the fine folks that are listening how we met. This proves that people don't use marketing tactics that actually really work.
It's a crazy small world out there, man. So just so everyone knows, Sean posted something on Craigslist, and I have my automatic, like whenever a deal pops up in Fresno, Craigslist sends me an email. Well, apparently, fate has it that we were supposed to meet because one of Sean's deals in Baltimore, Maryland pops up. I thought it was in Fresno. It looked like a smoking deal. And we get to talking, and this guy tells me his story. I'm like, dude, I got to get you on my show. And you've already been on Michael Zuber's show, who he
Yeah,
does a lot of work
yeah,
here in Fresno. And so, man, it's a small world. But yes, you need to be looking at all avenues for marketing, including Craigslist. They
yep,
say that there's sketchy people on Craigslist, but here's you and I doing work, doing business, and it's a
yeah.
great world.
Listen, man, that's a sketch is a good word for Craigslist. It is, but because everyone and their brother's on there. But here's the thing: it works. It works. And for those that are watching this right now, let me just tell you. So I'll tell you a quick thing that I didn't share with you earlier, Kyle. In my first year of business, I can't remember how many properties, how many turnkey rentals we sold. I think it was 64 turnkey rentals my first year in business. And I
Wow.
sat down. I sat down with my team at the end of the year, and we were just kind of evaluating. And I was having them pull reports and everything. And I had this thought pop into my head. I knew that we did well with Craigslist. Like, it was always kind of like our thing, right? Like, we always sold a lot of properties on Craigslist. So I had my operations director. I said to her, I said, hey, pull our list of properties sold this year, and just for the heck of it, how many properties do we sell using Craigslist ads? 32 out of the 64 properties
Wow.
were sold using Craigslist ads. And I will note too, we always post in Craigslist, and you and I met because we posted in Fresno for Baltimore. That's been our bread and butter, is posting outside of our own community, advertising properties, because investors will buy outside of their own community. It becomes a source of hesitation a lot of times on the investor's
Right.
part, but once you build that confidence and trust in the investor, then they're more willing to do that. But yeah, Craigslist works, man. It works. It works. It works. It works. I'm telling you,
Well,
we
it's
are
working.
proof, brother.
It's
We are
working
proof.
right now, man. I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, I found a deal on Craigslist as I was getting into the business too. But before we keep going into Craigslist, I do want to let people know a little bit about you. You are
Yeah.
doing turnkey rentals. You're doing it very well. You're also doing flips, but you've been doing this for a long time. You've got a ton of deals under your belt. So I got to
Yeah.
ask, what has been the weirdest or the most interesting real estate investing story in like 30 seconds or less? What comes to mind there?
Oh my God. Honestly, man, I think the weirdest things that still happen to me is when you are buying distressed properties, you see the weirdest shit. And so um we walked into a house one time that was being occupied by squatters that were having sex in the
Oh,
house.
yikes.
Yeah, I mean, it takes squatters and you add the sex thing on top of it, and it was nasty, man. It was nasty. And I,
Oh,
I, I was like, no, no, we'll look at the house later. But my contractor, so my contractor, he's this big, like burly guy. I'm a pretty big guy myself. He's this big burly guy. So I said, bro, let's just leave. Like, this is not cool. Like, I'm kind of freaked right now. He takes his hammer and starts banging on the stairs and says, get the F out, get the F out. So these two people that were squatting in the house come running out of the house with their clothes wrapped around their waist, and they're literally running out of the house. And I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my life, man. Like, it was the funniest thing. And I know that probably was the one thing you never expected me to say when you asked for a weird story, but
You
that's my
know,
weird story, brother.
nothing's a surprise anymore. I asked that question because it is
Yeah,
like you're gonna get what you get. I had someone talk
yeah.
about they walked in on a seance. Someone saw the remains of a dead body. I mean, there's weird
Oh.
stuff all out there. That's definitely a first though. So
Well, good. I'm glad. See, I
yeah.
pride myself on being unique, so I'm happy I can contribute to the uniqueness of your show, man.
There you go. Well, hey, you're calling in from Jacksonville, but you live in Baltimore. You're doing business
Yep.
in both areas, but
Yep.
kind of give us the story of Sean Christopher. Where did you come from, and how did you get
Sure.
to where you're at today? It's definitely an inspirational one, and that's why I wanted to get you on here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I've been very entrepreneurial pretty much my whole life. As a matter of fact, one of my first jobs out of college was working for a software development company called Kirchman Corporation in Orlando, Florida. They developed banking software. I was the youngest sales guy to ever work for the company. And I got so good at the software itself and educate and teaching people how to use the software that I actually became one of their go-to people. And I traveled all around the country showing banks, these multi-billion-dollar banks, how to use the software. It was so weird, man. I was like this 22-year-old kid, and I'm like in front of these big bank presidents. And so, I've
Wow.
always been entrepreneurial. I love sales. I love sales. My dad was in sales his whole life. And in fact, I actually went to school for sports broadcasting, and that was what I got my degree in. And my first job out of college was
Pause,
working
pause,
for
pause, pause. Did I tell you that's what I went to school for too?
shut up. No way.
Yeah.
For real? Oh, dude. No way.
I was a sports anchor in Grand Junction, Colorado for the first 2 years of my life, or
Oh,
first two
no.
years of my career.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's a
Okay.
riot, man. That's so
Like
funny.
we told you guys, we met on Craigslist literally a week ago. This is the
Yeah,
world of real estate investing. It's awesome.
that's
Anyway,
funny.
keep on going, Sean.
Well, so it doesn't pay shit.
It doesn't.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
$19,000 my first year. Horrible.
oh, dude. Okay, you were a couple grand on me. So I worked for a local radio station in Syracuse, New York, where I grew up, and I made 16 grand a year, and I worked from 11
Unreal.
o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. And I said, and finally I just got to this point where I was like, screw this, I'm
Yep.
not doing this anymore. So my dad had always done sales. He was really successful at it. And he said, listen, why don't you move to Florida? I'll let you work for my company. He worked for a company called Minolta. And that was my entrance into sales. I was really good at it. I love people. I love interacting with people. I like sales. And so I did that for years. Anyways, long story short, I ended up getting into the mortgage brokerage business. Some friends of mine ran it. I've always had this tendency in my life to learn how to do something and then figure out a better, like have someone teach me how to do something. And then I tend to be able to figure out a better way to do it. And so I literally went to go work for this mortgage company. And I was like, man, there's so much better ways to do this. So I went to go work for a mortgage brokerage firm, and I've always been good at sales and marketing. And so I did really well. I mean, we did a lot of business. But then the subprime market tanked, and sometimes we go through these phases in our lives where it's kind of like a perfect storm, right? And
Right.
so the subprime market tanked. My business just took a dive. And at that time, I was going through a divorce, and just all this crap happened at the same time. And so I just ended up completely getting out of the mortgage business totally. And I ended up working. I ended up getting hired by a insurance brokerage firm in Manhattan, and I was their operations director. I ran 16 of their offices throughout New York State. I did that for a couple of years, got totally burnt out doing that. I just didn't like it. And believe it or not, actually got into the nonprofit world. And I know this is like kind of like a very, very odd story. I've had a really interesting, past 20 years of my life. I became very passionate about two issues that are really sad, kind of unfortunate issues here in the United States, and that is youth homelessness and human trafficking.
Mm.
And I actually started a nonprofit organization to help children that were victims of human trafficking. really sad issue. The
Wow.
average age of a kid trafficked in the United States is 13 years old, believe it or not. It's a really sad issue. And so I did that for a few years. And again, I have 3 kids. I got a family. And so the nonprofit world does not pay very much,
No.
similar to the sports broadcasting world, right?
Right.
And but I was very passionate about what I did. I love people, and I love to help people. And so I finally got to the point where I was like, I have to step down. I can't keep doing this anymore. And unfortunately, what had happened that you and I were very briefly talking about earlier is that I just fell on really challenging times. And we were, I was married at the time. I'm divorced now. I was married at the time. And we literally were about to be evicted from our apartment. We had family buying us food. I hate to admit this because it's embarrassing to me, but we had to sign up for food stamps. We were about to be evicted from the apartment. We had no idea what we were going to do. And I literally, I'm pretty open with sharing this. So I hope you don't mind me sharing this.
Yeah.
But,
No, please.
I'm very passionate about my faith. And I literally I prayed this one day and I said, God, give me an opportunity. Like, I don't need something handed to me on a silver platter. Just give me an opportunity. And that was my prayer. Just give me an opportunity. And a few weeks after that, a buddy of mine called me who lived in Baltimore, and he says to me, "How's life?" And I said it effing sucks. and so he said, tell me what's going on. And he knew that I was running the nonprofit, and I told him, listen, I can't afford to run this nonprofit anymore because it's really hurting my family, and I got to be able to do a better job as a dad of taking care of my kids. And he said, listen, man, he said, why don't you come to he was living in Baltimore. And he said, why don't you come to Baltimore? I'm doing really well in the real estate business in Baltimore. He was a real estate investor. And he said, come to Baltimore and check it out. So I sat down with my wife at the time and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And I've always been very much a risk taker by nature, but we're in this very precarious spot in life, right? And so I had to make a decision. The decision was, we had literally had $700 to our name for that month. And I said, all right, do we spend the money? Do we use that money for the rent for next month? Because we're not even sure we can pay rent next month. Or do we take this huge risk and do we go to Baltimore and explore this opportunity that could be a huge opportunity? And we sat down and we said, let's do it. Let's explore the opportunity and let's take the risk.
Wow.
And so we went to Baltimore and we spent a long weekend in Baltimore. And we basically decided that we were going to take this huge leap of faith and we were going to move to Baltimore. And so my wife at the time had a couple grand that she had in a 401k. We pulled the money out of the 401k to use to move to Baltimore. And we literally showed up, I kid you not, we literally showed up day one in Baltimore with not a penny to our name. We had rented this apartment. They gave us the first month rent for free. And so we showed up with our car, a month free rent, and we just prayed and said, help, please. One of my favorite sayings is work like it depends on you, pray like it depends on God. And so that's what I did. I worked my ass off. I believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe in the power of working your ass off too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I just worked really, really hard. And it was funny because I'd love to tell you that everything was just roses after this, but it wasn't. What happened is that my buddy who promised to teach me the business didn't teach me anything.
Ooh.
Kyle, it was the craziest thing, man. The guy never showed, he had this office that I worked out of. He never showed up to the office. I barely ever saw the guy. I saw him maybe once a week, if that. And a couple of weeks went by and I'm kind of freaking out, man. I'm like, I just took this huge risk. I moved my family here and he knew that too, which really pissed me off, to be honest with you. But anyways, and I said, man, I don't know what to do. And I thought, you know what? I'm a smart guy. It's not like I haven't been in this position before. I've gone through a lot. I've figured out a lot. I've been very successful in the years. I just need to figure this out. I just need to figure it out. And so about 90 days went by. And so, the one thing I will mention, this buddy of mine, what he agreed to do is if I moved to Baltimore, he was going to pay me $2,000 a month to help him in his business. It was but he only agreed to do it for 3 months. That was his agreement with me. He said, for the first 3 months you're in Baltimore, I'll pay you $2,000 a month to help me. But he didn't even really have me help him, which was the funny part. But anyways, it was just a weird situation.
Guess, huh?
Yeah, well, exactly. I wasn't going to complain, And so, but here's the crazy thing that happened, man. At the end of the 90 days, he shows up at the end. Mind you, I barely saw the guy. He shows up at the end of literally, he shows up in the office on the 90th day and goes, hey, your 90 days are up. And I'm thinking, I'm just
Yeah.
like, really, bro? Really? And
Just
Kyle, it
counting
was
down the
funny.
days, obviously.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's funny, man. Like I said earlier, like I'm a risk taker by nature and I believe in taking leaps of faith. And I looked at the guy and I said, I quit. And he goes, what do you mean you quit? And I said, I quit. I said, because you're not going to pay me a salary and I'm not going to work for you. You didn't even teach me anything. I'm
Yeah.
not going to work for you and just get straight commission. And he only wanted to pay me like 20% commission or something like that. And it was just crap. And I'm like, no, screw this. Like, and so what we did is we went down to the Department of Taxation and Finance, whatever it's called. We filed our LLC and we started our own business. And it's amazing, man. And for someone that's watching this, I'm telling you, the power of a leap of faith and taking a risk, it scares the shit out of you. It does.
Mm-hmm.
But something very powerful happens, and I do attain some of it to my faith beliefs. I can't help it because that's just me. But like when you take that leap of faith, and you take that risk, something happens, man. And so here we are, like in this crazy situation, and we literally go out, file our own company. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I literally did not know what I was doing. I mean, I kid you not when I tell you I did not know what I was. I mean, I kind of did a little bit. And so what ended up happening, it's the craziest thing, man. What ended up happening is we start the business and we're about 2 weeks in, right? And I get a phone call from this guy and he says, this is what he says to me. Kid you not. He says, hey, I saw we were running Facebook ads to generate leads for buyers. He says to me, I saw your Facebook ad. And I'm thinking, hey, cool. Someone saw the Facebook ad. It's
Perfect.
He says to me, he goes, I just sold a commercial property. I'm doing a 1031 exchange. I have $1 million to spend. Can you help find me properties? I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I
Wow.
can.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that guy, Kyle, he was my first ever client with the new business. First ever client. He bought 16 houses from me. 16 houses. And
Wow.
it just catapulted our business. And it really it gave us a lot of working capital to just do a lot, right? And it began this amazing amazing momentum of success for that year. And I mentioned this earlier, but we grossed $750,000 in revenue in our first year of business.
It's amazing.
And but it was not without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and some major risks. And I just I always encourage people, like, take that risk. I mean, don't be stupid about it. I mean, maybe I was a little foolish about it, I guess, but I mean, but take that risk, man, because that's the secret sauce, man, is in taking those leaps of faith.
Yeah. Well, and that story right there, I know is inspiring a lot of people right now because, I mean, you talk about someone who'd never seen more than a few $1,000s in their account is what it sounds like your life was like. And then taking that risk and suddenly $750,000 of gross revenue that first year, not leaving it up to anyone except for yourself, because as soon as you saw that no one was going to be there to help you, you leaned on faith and your own grit and you went for it. So I want to talk a little bit more about that first year there, because, people who are thinking about getting into this business and can see that potential of, holy cow, $750,000 in your first year. How did he do that? I want to help answer that question.
Yeah. Sure. So, kind of what we were doing is flipping rental properties, really, in a way. Rather than flipping retail properties, we were kind of flipping. I didn't really think about it then because I was so new to the business and I didn't know a lot. And at the time, I didn't even really know what flipping was at that time. And so, one time a friend of mine said to me, he goes, "You're flipping rental property." I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess that is what we're doing." But
So how does
you,
that look different than flipping a residential home for purchase?
Yeah. So basically, we were, and our acquisition model was unique in that we were buying tax liens. So I had a good buddy of mine in Baltimore that was buying tax liens as I partnered up with him. So we were actually buying tax liens. Now we were doing a little bit of wholesaling. We were doing a little bit of wholesaling to find property. So it was the acquisition, what the acquisition process looked like. It was a combination of wholesaling and tax liens. That was how we acquired the properties, right? And so once we would acquire the property, we would then borrow money from a private lender to renovate the property. And then we would sell the property to an investor looking for rental income. Now, let me caveat all this by saying this, and that is that, and this is not just me, this is according to BiggerPockets and Realty Track, Baltimore, Maryland is one of the #1 grossing rental markets in the entire country. So like like even right now we're selling a house. I think it's like 70 or 75 grand for the house. It's rented for $1,400 a month. So, and you can get houses in Baltimore for 60, 65, 70 in that neighborhood, rented for anywhere between $1,300 to $1,800 a month. It's a really, really solid rental market. And so because the returns are so high, people are attracted to that high ROI. And so I hate to say that it sells itself. It doesn't sell itself because there's a lot of things about Baltimore that people don't like and they are hesitant about. And so, but it's a very, very good high ROI rental market. And so that helped us tremendously in the selling of the houses to the investors. But, our model was to find a distressed property. But here's the other thing too, right? So it wasn't just go out and find any distressed property. So I'm a huge believer in you don't need to recreate the wheel. Find out someone that's doing it really well and just copy what they do, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why people I think watch these podcasts, because I'm going to find someone that's smarter than me. I'm going to see what they're doing and I'm going to copy it. And so, so basically, what we just really started doing some digging, right? And really started digging into the Baltimore market. I think it was like I forget. I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. The governor of Maryland basically committed $400 million to renovating various neighborhoods in Baltimore. So Baltimore's what I call a block by block community, where one block is nice and the next block is just complete shit. And so that's just Baltimore. And that's a lot of big cities. Philadelphia is very similar to that as well. As a matter of fact, Philadelphia and Baltimore almost look like the same town if you ever visit both of them. But basically Baltimore is very block by block. And so the model that Baltimore was doing is they're renovating those crappy blocks, right? So you had a nice block and then you had a crappy block, and they were focused on the crappy block, right? So then what happened is Kevin Plank, who is the CEO of Under Armour, who actually I just heard he stepped down, which is crazy. Yeah, I just heard Kevin Plank step down. Kevin Plank, who was the CEO of Under Armour, along with Goldman Sachs, they got together. So there's this area of Baltimore called Port Covington, and it's the only area in Baltimore that is not non-developed, but still on the water. It's on the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. And so all the other neighborhoods that surround Inner Harbor have been fully developed, houses selling for $2, $3, $4, $500,000. But this Port Covington area, for whatever reason, not developed. It's still a very urban, low income type community, right? So anyways, so Kevin Plank and Goldman Sachs said, we're going to put $233 million in this project. So there's just all this money pouring into Baltimore. And I think they estimate within the next 10 years, there's going to be something like $10 billion coming into Baltimore. So there's just a lot of money coming into Baltimore right now to renovate different areas, because what we're seeing is a lot of urban revitalization, right? Similar to what you saw in like Brooklyn and New York City and different neighborhoods in Chicago. You're seeing this massive push for urban revitalization, and you're seeing neighborhoods that were considered previously very undesirable neighborhoods now all of a sudden being very desirable. So our focus has always been on those neighborhoods. So like we love C neighborhoods, because what we're doing is we're focused on the C neighborhoods that we know are on their way to a B neighborhood, right? So like I would always say to an investor, like, do you want cash flow or appreciation? Because usually when you're buying rental properties, you usually can't have both. Like if your preference is appreciation, you're not going to have great cash flow. If your preference is cash flow, you're probably not going to have great appreciation. Right. But this is kind of a unique circumstance where you're going to get your cash flow immediately, because that's a no-brainer, because that's just Baltimore. But you have 3 to 5 year potential you have for getting some really nice appreciation because of what's going on in these neighborhoods. Like I'll give you a great example. We just sold a house just a couple weeks ago to an investor for $69,000. The one block up, houses are selling for 200 grand. It's just, it's crazy. Yeah. So it's a really unique, Baltimore is a unique opportunity. And we loved the opportunity that Baltimore presented, and we just jumped on it. And so, like I said, that was our model. Now I will share this with you too. And I share this because if there's someone watching this that is thinking about getting into this business, first of all, I'll tell you, mindset, when someone asks me what the most important thing is about getting into this business, it's mindset. Because if you don't have your mindset in the right direction, and you're not thinking positively, and you're putting up obstacles, you're never going to be successful. Mindset is the single most important thing. And so what I find is a lot of people create obstacles for themselves. And when I first got into the business, I didn't even know what Kyle, I didn't even know what a private loan was. I'm like, private loan? Was that a loan that a bank does they don't tell anyone about? I'm like, it's like, I was like, what the hell is a private loan? And so I didn't even know what that was. So I had this idea this one day, right? And this was my idea. I said, man, like we got to sell these properties, but I don't know how to sell them because I don't have money to renovate them. So what are we going to do? So you know what I started doing? I started asking my investors. I said, what if you buy the property from me and then you pay me to renovate it and then I'll put a tenant in it for you? And they're like, okay. I was like, no shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we did is we sold them the distressed property
Wow.
and then they paid for the renovation of the property. We did the renovation for them, and then we placed a tenant in the property for them, and they loved it. And we gave them a big discount for doing that, right? So you know,
Absolutely.
it's all about coming up with solutions instead of problems. We put so many problems in front of ourselves, and we create so many obstacles when really there's always a solution. And so that solution I come up with is, okay, I don't have the money to do this, but there's got to be a way to do it.
Mhm.
Now, I'll tell you the truth. I was a little apprehensive because I'm like, is anyone going to actually say yes to this? But the first time you get a yes, it gives you like motivation, right? Because you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like I can do this. Someone said
Yep.
yes. And you might have to work your ass off for a couple of weeks or even months to get someone to say yes, but you get that first yes and you're like, all right, sweet. Like, let's do this.
Hey, Fearless Flipping community, we are taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Airbnb. For those of you that don't know, I have built much of my residual income around Airbnb, despite a lot of other investors being really excited about long-term renters. I was not. I saw an opportunity with Airbnb to get to my goals faster, to get more cash flow, and to pay off my houses quicker too. So instead of being really happy like a lot of other investors are with $200 to $300 of cash flow every single month, I've turned my renters and rentals into over $1,000 on average of cash flow every single month. So if you want to learn more about Airbnb, my systems, where I pick my Airbnbs, how I communicate with guests. Maybe you've already got Airbnb as a business on the side right now, but you want to take it to the next level. I am absolutely here to help you. You can book a free consultation with me about Airbnb. Learn more by booking at fearlessflipping.com/consultation, and you get me for 30 minutes for free. That's right, 30 minutes absolutely free. And that's once again fearlessflipping.com/consultation, and I'm looking forward to helping you conquer Airbnb investing.
Well, and Sean, I think one of the things I want to point out and make sure that I'm right about is that by doing that, you're taking out realtor fees and you're also taking out holding fees, because now this
Correct.
person knows that because they're buying it, they're going to hold on to it. You don't have all these holding costs and
Yep.
you're not paying interest until you actually get a tenant in there. Am I right on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that was what, you know, initially getting into the business, that was my fear. So what we were doing initially is we were only selling properties that were completely rental ready. But those are really hard to come by in the wholesale market, and even in the tax lien market, it's hard to get those properties. They're a dime a dozen. You know what I'm saying? And so we start selling properties on a consistent basis. And I'm thinking, okay, we got to come up with better ways to sell these properties because the demand for properties started becoming more than I actually was able to. The demand became more than the need, right?
Mhm.
And so I said, how can we meet the demand if we don't have a way to do that right now? And my solution was, let's sell the distressed property, selling it based on the return that the investor was going to get after the property was renovated and a tenant was in
Mhm.
the property. So you're selling the dream, so to speak, right? Like, yeah, we got to renovate it, but blah, blah, blah. And so what we would do, Kyle, is we would put all this into the contract. Like, so in the contract, we would put, we would put the scope of work into the contract, and in there, in the contract, it would state this work, you know, the work will be completed on the property by X. So we'd commit to having the work completed within a certain amount of time frame. So everything was done, you know, in the right way, so to speak. But it was a creative solution to a problem that I had to come up with a solution to, you know?
Wow. There's so much good there that is unique, I think, to a lot of people. The first thing I
Oh
do
yeah.
want to clarify, I wrote a note here when you mentioned it. I want to make sure everyone knows when you say you were buying tax lien properties, what is that? How are you getting those? Where were you finding them?
Yeah, so you get a you go down to your county office, and you get a list of properties that are up for tax sale, right? And I'll be on, the whole process is a rather cumbersome process, but we do really well with that, and so it's one of the reasons why we do it. But so you get a list of properties that are up for tax sale, and you bid on the property. So they accept bids on the property. So what you do is you make a bid on the property. If you have the winning bid on the property, what happens is they still give the owner of the property a certain amount of time to pay off their past due tax bill. Like, it doesn't mean you're free and clear yet. They still have,
Mm.
so it's usually between 6 months to a year that they have, that the owner of the property has to, so it's a long waiting game. So it's a longer term play is what it is, right? And so they have a certain amount of time. Once if they don't pay their tax bill, what happens is the property then goes through a foreclosure process, and we take the deed to the property. But the whole process can take anywhere from a year to even up to 2 years. I usually don't see it take any more than a year to a year and a half, but it can take up to 2 years. And so we then take the deed to the property. And so we've been doing this for years now. Like I said, my buddy is the one that kind of spearheads it. And there's a lot to it. And you can, there's different programs that you can look into online where it teaches you, how to do tax liens. We even thought about doing one ourselves at some point, just because we have it down pretty good. But that's how the tax lien process works, basically. And you can get some really good deals on properties that way. And so for someone who's watching this that is maybe just focused on wholesaling, add that to your repertoire, so to speak. You know what I mean?
So, I'm dealing with a property here in town. It's actually a piece of land that was bought in a tax sale, and I'm trying to wholesale it. But here in California, tell me if it's different in Maryland. In California, there's a lot of title companies that won't insure that unless you have a tax title certificate. So do you ever run into those issues at all?
Really?
Yeah.
No, we don't ever run into that. That's so interesting, man.
Yeah.
Huh.
So especially within the first, it's something like within the first 5 years after the property was purchased, a title company won't insure that until 5 years has passed. Just, I guess, because of the fact that, like you said, the owner still has time to pay those things off.
Yeah.
Well, hey, just another reason why Baltimore, Maryland is awesome. What's going on in Jacksonville? Why are you guys looking over there too?
Oh man, so Jackson, I used to live in Jacksonville at one point in my life, and Jacksonville is a fantastic fix and flip market. It's a decent rental market, and we sell a lot of rental properties here in Jacksonville, but it's a fantastic fix and flip market. Jacksonville is very often in the top 10 Forbes list for cities to flip in the United States. As a matter of fact, the top 10 list for best cities to flip in the United States usually is comprised half of Florida cities, which is funny. But at one point a year or two ago, Realtor.com actually named Jacksonville, Florida, the #1 city in America for families to move to. And so Jacksonville is just a great city. It's got a lot of Jacksonville's got a lot of really great things about it. But here's one of the nice things about Jacksonville, right? So Kyle, I work with a lot of investors in California that are flipping in Jacksonville. And the reason why is because my investors here in Jacksonville all day long are doing fix and flips, but they're all in for under $200,000. So you tell a California investor that they can do a fix and flip and be all in under 200, they're doing the happy dance on the street. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know what though, Sean, in Fresno, it's very possible.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Fresno is. Okay.
That the Central Valley of California is much different than the Bay up north, and then Southern California down south.
Okay.
So yeah, most of ours are, if you're doing it the right way, most of ours, the ARV is under 250.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. Well, that's good. That's good to know. I learned something today then, because I didn't know that. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good market, and I see a lot of people diversifying into various cities in Florida. Just let's be honest, Florida kind of has that sexy appeal, as far as like it's Florida, and it's beaches and it's sunshine and it's and so but like I said, the Jacksonville, Florida is just a very good market. I have a couple really close friends of mine that have been wholesaling and flipping in Jacksonville for well over 10, 15 years now, and they've done really, really well. And so we just recently moved into the Jacksonville market. We kind of started dabbling in it about 2 years ago, started doing a little wholesaling, a couple flips here and there, but now we're kind of full on into it. So we are wholesaling here in Jacksonville, and we're flipping, and we're doing rental properties.
That's great.
And then and then after Jacksonville, well, we just moved into Sarasota, Florida, and also Manatee County. So we're doing all of Manatee County for wholesaling, and we're doing Sarasota. We're really close to having a couple acquisitions in Sarasota, and then we're actually within the next probably I want to say year-ish or so, we're going to be moving up into the Atlanta market as well. So it's been exciting.
That's awesome. Well, really quickly, it sounds like you have a ton of activity. So with having a business and needing that much activity, you need people in places to be able to make that work. How many people are working for you or working with you?
Oh man. I mean, now it's probably well over, I would say it's probably close to 100 right
Wow.
now ish. I mean, because here's the way that we have things set up, right? So in Baltimore, I have so we do property management and tenant placement in Baltimore, right?
Okay.
So I got my property management tenant placement team in Baltimore. I have about 5 teams of contractors that work for me in Baltimore that are constantly doing our renovations, pretty much around the clock, because we sell a lot in Baltimore. Again, that high ROI, and so we sell a lot of rental properties in Baltimore. So, probably 5 or 6 teams of contractors. I got the tenant placement property management team, and then I got my acquisition team in Baltimore too. So we got a lot going on in Baltimore, and then with the team that we have here in Jacksonville. I mean, there's 10 people that work on my acquisitions team in the office here in Jacksonville that are, that's just the acquisitions team here in Jacksonville. And then we got the disposition team, which probably is about the same. It's probably roughly about 10 people or so. And then we got our contractors here in Jacksonville too. We're not doing tenant placement here in Jacksonville yet. I mean, we may at some point. I almost had to in Baltimore because we were selling so many properties in Baltimore, and people would call me pissed off because the people that they used weren't doing a good job. And I've just always prided myself on a high level of excellence. And I said I didn't want to do it because, I'll be honest with you, property management is a pain in the ass. But I felt like if we could offer that to our clients, it would help to create a more fluid transition for them.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
yeah, so we have a pretty large team in place between all of those cities, and it'll keep growing as we expand into some of these other markets.
Sean, this is awesome. So, I mean, if I'm listening to this right now and I've got an extra, $75 to $100,000, and I just want to be cash flowing, essentially, I can go to you. I can get a property in Baltimore, and not
Yeah.
only do I buy it, but you're going to put a tenant in its place and manage the property.
Yep.
And realistically, how much can I expect to cash flow every month after that?
Oh, I mean, minimum 15% ROI in Baltimore. I mean,
Wow.
that's the minimum. I mean, you will rarely see a property that I'm selling that comes in less than a 15% ROI. What I tell all my investors is every property I sell is usually somewhere between a 15 to 20%
It's
ROI.
amazing.
And so it's just, listen, man, here's the thing. Think about this, right? So I'm going to start actually doing a lot of like content type videos where I start educating just your average investor about real estate investing. Because think about it. If let's say you're the CEO of a company right now, right? And you're a successful CEO, maybe you're doing it for 10 years and you got money in an IRA or it's in a 401k. How much are you really getting on that money? Maybe
Mhm.
3%, maybe 3, 4, 5. I mean, the 30-year average on an IRA is 6%. And so, what kind of return are you really getting? So when I can show that's one of the reasons I love my job so much is I love showing people how they can make more for their money, because it gets them excited and it makes me excited too, because I like helping
Absolutely.
people, right? It's not just about making money, it's about helping people. And so, when I can show someone how they can take their measly 3% and turn it into 15, they're like, holy crap, and here's the thing too, like I always like to hear what people's whys are. Like a lot of times I'll ask them like, why are you investing? And I get a lot of cool stories, right? Like I'm preparing for my child's college fund, or I want my wife and I to retire to a real nice house and live on the beach or whatever, and even retirees, like we worked with this retired couple. As a matter of fact, I just told this story on a show I did the other day, but we had this retired couple who came to us, and they had different accounts that they were making, like I said, between a 3 to a 6% return in. What they ended up doing is, I think they had $200,000 to spend. They converted it into a self-directed IRA so they could have check writing capabilities to use some of it for real estate.
Right.
They bought about $500,000 in property. Out of pocket, they spent about $100,000, right? So they put like they ended up what a lot of times what my investors will do in Baltimore is they'll pay with cash and then refinance the property and pull 75 to 80% equity out of the property after they buy it with cash and refinance it, right? So these guys basically ended up with about $500,000 worth of properties. They were out of pocket about $100,000. I forget what my numbers were. I'd have to look at it again. But these guys were grossing something like, I want to say they were grossing like $7,000 a month in revenue from the rental properties. 7,000 times 12. They were making about at their current investments. They were making. I ran all these numbers for these guys. I remember sitting down with them and going over all the numbers, and they were shocked. And I told them what they were like. It was funny because they're like, "This is too good to be true." I'm like, "I'll give you the names of 5 people that are going to tell you it's not too good to be true." And so like they were making like $6,000 a year on their current investments, and they just took half of that money, put it into real estate, and now they're making whatever 7,000 times 12. That's like $60,000-$70,000 a year.
84,000, right? 84. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Calculator. So right, yeah. So think about that, man. Now this was a retired couple, but here's the thing: again, you got to know what someone's why is, right? Mm-hmm. So their goal was to leave a really solid nest egg for their 2 kids. That was their goal. Is they were in their 70s. They didn't need it for any grandiose, plans or anything. They just wanted to leave something significant behind. And here's the thing too, like, so not only are they going to leave a lot of money behind for their kids, which is why they're doing it, but they're going to leave these kids with cash flowing, appreciating assets. I mean, a lot of times people don't think about that. As a matter of fact, the self-directed IRA company that I use was telling me that there's something like $90 billion in retirement assets right now, wow. Asset account. And out of that $90 billion, only 3% of it is invested in real estate. Isn't that crazy?
Well, the timing of you sharing this is really interesting because I just had a guy on the show who talked about self-directed retirement accounts. And so we're going to put a link in this video. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure to go to the YouTube channel, take a look at that video and that podcast also. But you gotta educate yourself about that, especially if you're looking for the long-term play, which is what real estate is all about. That's where this really comes into play. But Sean, man, I really hate to like cut this off because we've had such a great conversation, but I want to definitely
we'll do a part 2 sometime.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to make sure that we give people an opportunity to connect with you, whether they just want to learn more from you or if they want to actually become one of your investors. I mean, you seem like the right guy for them to be able to connect with for a great ROI. So where can people go to do that?
Website is bluewaterinvestmentproperties.com. That's probably the best way, bluewaterinvestmentproperties.com. And I have no problem just giving away my cell phone number because everyone else uses it, but you can call me directly on my cell phone. It's 407-591-2007. Call me on my cell phone, shoot me a text, say, hey, saw you on Kyle's podcast and I want to have a conversation with you. So and anytime I make myself available whenever I can. I love meeting new people.
Perfect. Can you say that phone number just one more time?
Absolutely, man. 407-591-2007 or visit bluewaterinvestmentproperties.com.
Perfect. Sean, you are the man. You have helped people conquer real estate investing today. Thank you so much for being on the show. Show notes for this one, www.fearlessflipping.com/Sean Christopher. That's SEAN Christopher with a PH, not an R. So let's get you over to the show notes. Go take a look at how you can invest in some of these properties that Sean has, or maybe if you are needing some help in managing properties as well, and you're in that area in Jacksonville or in Baltimore, make sure to reach out to Sean and get his help. But just follow the things that he mentioned there. Use this story, guys, really as your catalyst to get out there and start doing this. Sean had no help, even though he was promised help. And I think a lot of people at that time would have just said, screw it, you promised me help, you're not going to help me, so now I can't succeed. Well, not Sean. You can do the same thing. You are the determining factor. You are the variable that will determine if you are successful in anything in life. Stop blaming other people. Go do it yourself. Conquer real estate investing. Learn from the best.